So now today, you see meat substitutes. How about getting to the point you don't want to eat the muscle of an animal? You don't need a meat substitute. How about getting to the point where you don't want to suck from the breast of a cow? How about getting to the point where you're woman and man enough to say no to total insanity? Now we're going to give you the biggest food problems. Number one is sugar. By the way, we're going to give you for free my sugar book. One of the most important books I wrote, and certainly if somebody said, what's the number one thing people should give up that's bad? It's sugar. We've done work on that. Now finally the consensus with the legitimate scientific community, there's not too many of them, but legitimate. You're going to hear a lot of people tell you how great fruit is on this stage, etc. That's all now passé stuff, passé. But sugar is male hormones' best friends because it gets rid of it. Makes you estrogenic. And women, it makes what? Masculine. And what doesn't have sugar in it? I'll bring you to the best health store here locally and show you that most of the products have sugar in them, where they break into sugar. You may say, I don't eat any sugar. I don't eat any of those products. You eat potatoes, you eat bread, you eat pasta. 20, 30 minutes, you have sugar in you. That's just people who are trying to hide they have a sugar problem. Do you follow? And the number one addiction in the world is sugar. Not heroin, not alcohol, not cocaine, sugar. You say, oh, Brian, you're extreme. You're extreme if you don't know that. Cocaine and heroin are far less addictive than sugar. And how many of you have ever tried to give up all sugars here? The hardest thing I ever did. Gave up meat, boom. Loved meat, gave it up. Gave up dairy, boom. Sugar, 35 years. Just rename my sugar. This isn't sugar. This is a half a pound of honey. You rawies, oh, it's agave syrup. That's worse. Worse. The hardest thing in the world. 30 times more addictive than cocaine. I never took cocaine. Thank God I didn't, because I would have gotten fat with that too, I'm sure. But the reality, quite simple, is that's pretty bad. People who took cocaine said to me, look at, one time we wanted to constantly take it. It made us heroic, made us feel like we were super people. What do you think sugar does to you? One of the most interesting articles I ever read in the New York Sunday magazine section was exposing the sugar cartel. Read it. Pull it up. Must be online. These people kill. How many of you know, how many of you black people even know that slavery came from the sugar industry? Half the black friends of mine, they didn't know that. When a handful of arrogant white aristocracy in Europe wanted the substance called sugar, which was hardly eaten, by the way, it was so revered and so expensive, it was exclusive, that they'd eat 1 kilo a year, 2.5 pounds a year, 2.2 pounds a year. They said, well, Europeans can't do this. It's too hard to work. Who are the people that can do it? So they went over and took these innocent Africans. Innocent people. They were so beautiful. Have you ever been to Africa? Most genuinely human people I've ever met. They talk like this, hello. And they mean it. They embrace you, hello. So the most beautiful, that's your ancestors. And they said, oh, just get in our boats here. Oh, wow, we're going to take a boat ride. And they brought them through the Caribbean. They brought them to North Carolina and South Carolina. And they enslaved them so that a handful of white folks could take 1 kilo of sugar a year. Now, one of the things that governments have known ever since the beginning of organized society, which is the beginning of the end of society, the end of culture, is that you divide and you conquer. And why they pour into certain communities cocaine and heroin is to divide and conquer. And they got all of us to take the substance now, called sugar. You are a slave to sugar. So your governments intentionally started to subsidize the sugar industry, and by the way, the average person consumes 120 to 160 pounds of sugar a year. The slave industry came out of it. You're now enslaved. It's karmic, I'm going to tell you right now. And I'm not going to ask you, but you know you have a problem with sugar. And if you could just rename in your sugar, you have a bigger problem. That's like an alcoholic who says, I only drink 1 cup of wine a day, but try to take it away from me.